So, hello and welcome. My name's Steve DeBell, and today I'm speaking with IndigoAngel on Galactic War and exploring Gridwork. So, IndigoAngel is a global planetary grid reader and a cosmic librarian. For 7 years, she's delved into deep occult research, sharing high consciousness content, channeled insights, and also her art on YouTube. On YouTube. An angel, seraphim, embodied soul, and guardian representative of New Earth, she works to assist in ushering in a future beyond the confines of the fourth dimension, and she wears many hats, spiritually speaking. Her website is indigoangel222.com. So, hi, Indigo Angel.
Hi, Steve. I am really excited to be here and talk with you today, and thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Now, before we dive in, I just want to ask you a little bit about your awakening. And most of us have had a kind of conventional life. I know that at some point, I think 2013, you had an awakening. What triggered your awakening?
Well, I think I was always very sensitive as a child. I think my consciousness was advanced as a child as well. There was a lot of truth that I would see through a lot of the religious programming that I think my family had inherited. And so, yeah, sensitive, inquisitive, all these beautiful things. But I think because my softer side, my sensitive side, my emotional side, and my spiritual side wasn't really nurtured, and I wasn't really given the tools that I think I would have needed to, you know, really to be able to expand in my soul gifts and abilities. It kind of led me into a path of self-destruction for some time, definitely
Mm,
in my 20s and all of these things. So I pushed myself to the limits. I pushed myself to the extremes. I pushed myself to the brink of death,
mm.
basically. And I've had some life and death experiences. Um, and so that really started to break down the carbon in my body. I noticed that. I became more translucent and holographic. My light body activated. And I would feel and see that as if my blood in my body was actually glowing. Like I would feel like I was glowing or illuminated all the time. And it would actually come on. It would actually like turn on like a button almost. Like today you're going to be translucent and holographic, and all these things are going to go through you. Um, it was a rigorous, painful physical transformation of what I later interpreted was the embodiment of my soul and my ability to have deeper levels of psychic depth perception. And so, sometimes things would just come through me. Like if I up with somebody and they were carrying some really intense, heavy, negative attachments, frustrations, projections, judgments, whatever it was, like that energy would right through my body, like, and I would be sick. I would have to go lay down and rest, sometimes for days, just to recover from these types of minimal exchanges that were very, very extreme for my physical body and for what I was feeling, the intensity of the feeling. So, yeah, that catapulted my awakening in 2013. All of this physical change and, interpreting what it was I was going through.
Wow. Well, let's start off with Galactic War. A lot of people are going to be very interested in this. It's a lot of people have different ideas about Galactic War and how it's affected planet Earth. What would you say about that? Galactic War and how it's really still probably influencing planet Earth.
It's really at the crux of humanity, and for the well-being of the planet and humanity, for us to be able to truly interpret the Earth's Akashic history within planetary warfare. Because one thing that, you know, I'm sure many of us in the consciousness community are aware of, but maybe some who are learning about these things, um, would need to understand is that everything that occurs on this planet is kind of stored in um, the planetary hall of records, okay, and down through the halls of Amenti and down through inner Earth and in the ethereal layers of the consciousness of the planet. And so, a lot of things that I've discovered through remote viewing is I actually found a vault of Orion in Germany, like it's lodged in the grids in Germany. And so things get kind of piled and compacted and layered inside of this vault of Orion, which honestly holds all of humanitarian war history, galactic war history, because all human history, all planetary history that's war related is also galactic war history, right? It's just like simultaneously, interdimensionally spun throughout space-time, basically, right? We must know that we have to be able to start to release that vault, and we have to start to work through the things that occurred throughout our past timelines, especially during the Aryan timeline and kind of what came through for World War I and World War II. These are very, very heavy, detrimental, traumatic energies. Um, why this is so important actually is because during the life and death processes, we have to interpret through a life review the things that occurred in this incarnation. And we have to, process everything. But another thing we have to process that people might not be aware of is we have to process the planetary war. I actually seen this in one of my own life and death experiences was I was taken to kind of like a heavenly realm of imagery that would project all of the images of the war timelines that happened in the planet. Like it was just like showing images, 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 images. I realized in that moment that as a soul collective on the planet, we have to enter through that and we have to be able to process and transmute that. Right now, that's kind of stuck in the life and death processes. So I seen as a soul collective until we can um, come to terms and transmute and truly like heal all of those blockages in the life and death passageways and cycles that we can't really transform entirely within the timelines of what's here on Earth and kind of get past that like detriment basically. So I do see into the future 12,000 CE, like Common Era, as we go into New Earth and as the Earth rebirths a new identity, that these things will eventually be worked through and cleared. Like we don't have to worry about it, but we do have to, I think, be more proactive in not running away from the problems that are here on the planet, so to speak.
Yeah. Can I ask you, because I guess a lot of people are interested in interference in terms of dark ET interference on the Earth. People talk about greys, reptilians, and even Orion beings. What do you see that level of interference affecting the Earth now?
It's definitely very heavy, yes.
Mm,
There is many warring factions. I do feel like, again, when I say like we're not supposed to run from this, we have to kind of go into it because some of the things I've seen in terms of the Earth's origins, like where she descended from, it's what I've seen is that Earth and Venus kind of split like a cell and that they came from the Orion system. They came from the
mm,
Rigel system. I do think there's aspects of the planet that came in from the Palladian system as well. I've been seeing more and more how that ties in. Um, but we haven't been able to, I think, be granted our human origin history, right? Like this information hasn't been returned to humanity. So we're warring over so many things, right? Like, and there's a lot of things that haven't been disclosed to us. Like things have been actually intentionally withheld, like our human origins,
mm,
right? So I think when you can't understand entirely how you were created, why you were created, why most of the race lines, such as the Alpha Dracos and the negative ETs and the Greys, were bred for war, right? They had all kinds of technology, bioweapons basically to use against humans, right? Like hybridization programs, abduction programs, euthanasia programs, force breeder programs. I mean, our inception into this world was through a boggery of multiple, I think traumas and distortions that we just like inherited through the master geneticist, the implant systems, all of these things, the enslavement, it all came in with the design, which is
mm.
really interesting, right? So my thing is that we can't like, I think, just continue to be like, oh, it's the Drax and it's the Greys and it's the negative ETs that are doing all this stuff here. I think we have to realize like we are interbred with their genetics, right? So the predatorial domination codes and the you know, destruction codes, the humans were basically they built and programmed the weapon systems in the planet while working directly with the negative ET consciousnesses because we're interfacing with it as a part of our genetics because I feel that our origins go back to the Orion system. So we came in inheriting the war karma from Orion.
Mm.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know before we started speaking on this interview, we talked about grids and how it relates where grids have been, there's the kind of original grids and there's kind of more mutant hijacked grids. Could you just say something about these type of grids?
Yes. So, and I want to just say, I don't want to spin this in a negative sense, right? Like,
That's
I feel
fine.
like my enthusiasm is like, "Yee." I have a lot of understanding with the fact that we are transforming all the time. We're terra reforming all the time. So we are moving into a golden age. Like we are moving into a time of enlightenment. And those things will upgrade the negative ET reptilian bodies and the degraded human genetics and things like this. This is actually what the ascension process is about, is to rehabilitate all planetary DNA. So it's not all doom and gloom, just so you know. But I make the message like profound because it's like this does have to be worked through. This does have to be healed. We do have to go back to the grids to do this, and this is what grid worker technology ushers in. It ushers in um, practices, land shamanism, avatar land shamanism, and ways in which we can sync with the planetary grid to ultimately correct and heal all the degradation that's occurred according to war timelines, right? According to bloodshed, right? Like, so if there's a war that occurs on a land, okay, the land embodies all of that pain body and trauma. It seeps into the soul river lines of the planet. Like, of course, there's a natural transmutive and transformation thing that occurs within the stargates and things like this. Like, we have our bioplanetary spiritual immunity that will shift things. But when we have weapon systems and we have really negative fallen Atlantean technology next to these things, like it's very difficult for the land to recover and for the stargates to recover. So there can be hijacking that occurs. And so this is what the negative ETs ultimately invest their time in, is fighting over the resources, which one of the resources is tapping off of those stargate systems, right? So this is what breeds a negative and artificial overlay to run, right? Which is a negative grid. But beyond that, the pure biospiritual planetary electromagnetic grid is very multidimensional and complex. It is running organic intelligence, celestial, universal, planetary radial intelligence. And it's basically supporting the fabric of reality here, and the building blocks of many, many layers of the internal spiritual structures of the planet, all the way to the building processes of New Earth and what she's terraforming into.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Is your work around reclaiming some of these hijacked grids? Is that part of what you're doing?
Yes, within Gridwork, there's many, many different types of missions, and those that may come in with a Guardian rescue contract from the Orion system would definitely be more geared and oriented towards trying to extract the negative things out of the grids, out of the stargates, clear and cleanse, purify um, the detriment of these things and work to restore everything that they really can there in the purest good and the highest good of divine will,
Yeah.
for this planet. So very much so. That's a part of one of the roles for grid work.
How do you work with grids generally?
There's so many ways. If you want to just work personally at home, one of the ways in which I started was just acquiring maps. I kind of became a connoisseur of maps and cartography. And I would get my crystals and I would genuinely just build and charge crystal grids on the map for specific locations. Let's say I'm like praying over a location, clearing a location, just tuning in. Maybe I just want to remote view a location and data collect. I would, charge it, and that would allow me to access things more energetically according to those those grids or wherever it was. Um, I've gone from like basic maps to computer software and using Scribbles maps. And so I like to actually chart things now according to what I see and feel and create like something that could really define a grid worker mission, like an itinerary, so to speak. Like, what would be our drop-in location? Where are our target locations for our focus, and what are we focusing on at each location? What ley lines connect in between these locations, and what makes sense to move this energy in terms of our organic resources? And then what is our extraction site? Like, where do we complete that mission work? And so I do those things remotely. So remote group sessions where it's like an infinite mind exchange, right? With like
Right.
a lot of people channeling information and kind of opening up the space together. Or we do boots on the ground grid worker missions where we actually go and host events. And each experience is very different and brings in different energies. Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you that towards the end so people can know what you're up to. But I want to ask you about two particular kind of grids. The first one is the Lemurian, which I know you talk on your website around the three Lemurian light matrices that's still there that we can tune into. And there's also the Atlantean polarity grid template. Can you say something about, you know, these? A lot of people are interested. I'm interested in these kind of Lemurian, Atlantean. Atlantean was
Yeah.
a calamity, but I think Lemuria also was not easy. The ending time, anyway.
No, it was not. I mean, we had Holocaust and genocide and tribal murders and forced breeder programs. Like, it was a mess. Um, but yeah, but at the same time, a lot of magic came in Lemuria because it was when the Pleiadians brought in the 24th spirit body and chromosomes and really, upgraded the soul body of humankind, to a higher level of spiritual capacities and awakening and abilities. So that all happened in Lemuria. I think it's one of the reasons why we have such a spiritual soul resonance to Lemuria. And so Lemuria, the way I see it, because it is a past time or a past timeline, that it kind of exists within the matrices of the planet, the light grid fabrics within the planet, which in fact still stores the information and still runs the intelligence through the planet, right? So you can tap into the grid fabric of Lemuria, the organic intelligence field, and you can do so much, right? Activate the codes, I think awaken more remembering. For me, I was really initiated through a priestesshood type golden temple activation where I would ethereally gain access to the island of Lemuria and work within the temples themselves, the light temples. Um, the light temples there are, yeah, they're still connected to inner Earth seraphim light cities, and these light passageways build the light lattices that hold the reality templates in the Earth's field. So Lemurian Light Grid 1 was one that I channeled according to when I immediately started to pick up on what that electromagnetic model looked like. It had a lot of X's and intercrosses because there was a lot of feminine energy, and I found that X's would intersect the feminine energy in portals, pulling more magnetism into the vortices, into the power centers of that model. I would find hourglass shapes and figures as well, which was also another feminine geometric design as well. Yeah, and I seen it running on the pre-equatorial pole tilt shift in the planet as well. So you also have to think like, okay, my body is a part of the grids in the planet, and so for me to access this, I'm going to have to actually reorient my pole shift internally to access that in the planetary light matrices as well. So that's to really, tune into it and connect with it where you're aligned according to the axial tonal lines and the vertical vortices. Um, so Lemurian Light Grid 1, yeah, that's a pretty profound template, but then I realized there was almost like higher atomic levels of radial electromagnetic models that were running, and that was um, the Dove grid and the Swan grid. And of course, researching and bringing in history from other things helped me to interpret the total templating of that dove grid. One was by reading the J.J. Hurtek book, the Book of Enoch, and learning about the history of the dove being originally uh, kept in Australia. Like this was the birthplace of that. So again, very much connected to the Pleiadians. And I started to connect the Pleiadians and that dove grid, bringing in the Christed consciousness that rooted or originated somehow in the lands of Australia. But then, according to the fall, according to the hijacking, the Atlantean timelines, the Dark Brotherhoods that incepted, the demonization campaigns that occurred around the serpent cults, that shifted and was taken to the Americas, in which the Dove light grid matrice was locked into the land codes here and is held down by the J seals, which is an APIN network, which is taught about through Ashayana Dean's work, Atlantean Pylon Implant Network, that holds that light basically oppressed in the 70-degree west vertical ley line in the North and South Americas. So it was almost like there has been indoctrinated corruption that's implanted as a mind program, MK Ultra program almost, to oppress the Christed consciousness through the grids and landlocking technology and crystal generator blow up technology, right? Because they somehow manipulated this also with the selenite crystal caverns that are running along that ley line as well, according to the Bermuda Triangle and all of the Atlantean disturbances that occurred down there.
Is the Atlantean grids, are they, because I know the Bermuda Triangle, for example, was causing a lot of problems, but now it seems to be stopped. Is there a healing going on in that grid?
I feel they're very well could be. That's a great observation, actually. Like shifting in the timelines and um, restoration of more of an archaic revival. I know one of the things that we're retrieving right now from our Atlantean records is the codes to build star civilizations on the planet. Architectural designs that actually support our consciousness evolution. So if you were to look at the pictures and the structures of Atlantis itself, how it's kind of circular, it's in between water, it's built geometrically according to more of like the Christic spiral of the flower of life. Like you can see that the natural organic codes are within the geometry of the architecture of the land. I think a lot of those are activating now, and we're getting the upgrades, at least within those that are awakening. You know, we're getting the
Cool.
upgrades. This is coming through Gridwork technology, and the evolution of this is that we'll build new cities, we'll build new architecture according to star civilizational technology that will come back to the planet. But yeah, I think that's being revived from Atlantis. I think there's a lot of things that we're gonna bring back from our ancient antiquity that will
Yeah,
be necessary for us.
I
Yes.
believe so. Now, I want to ask you. I know you can do a meditation for us. I want to ask you just about your upcoming work. What do you do in terms of sessions, and what do you do in terms of events?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Um, I have a entire menu for people to select from on my website, IndigoAngel222.com. I do deep chakra clearings. I do J seal and Draco seal removals. I do feminine and masculine implant removals. I do Lemurian regressions. I do problem focus sessions. Like if someone has like something that's kind of like different that they're dealing with, which lots of things occur that could come up, right? Um, so just kind of channel or intuit basically kind of what's there and help people work through things. Sometimes I do life coaching even. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things. I do starseed origin readings as well, so I help people find their starseed origins. I think that's a fundamental aspect in one's awakening, especially if they're going galactic, if they're going quantum within their consciousness. You know, it's kind of a thing that really will help one evolve and download higher levels of awareness and things like this. So, um, the events that I currently have going on is we are going to Kauai, Hawaii. This is going to be going on in September. We'll be there from the 13th to the 17th, and we're going to be working in the oldest island right? The mother island is what I've been seeing, that this is like considered a mother island. There's a lot of ancient, beautiful, spiritual things that are going on in those ancient islands. I mean, it is a miniature chakra system, the islands themselves, and Kauai is considered where the departed go. So all of the departed from the islands on the north shores, they're basically released in inner earth vortices there that is a part of the whole planetary mechanical system uh of the spiritual immune system of the planet, right? Like this is connected. So what happened in Kauai was there was a lot of beautiful history with the tribes that were there, like the Ioni tribes, and were 12-dimensional blueprint holders. So they would use light and sound frequencies to access the inner Earth gate and actually clear the evil corruption out of the planet. A technology, spiritual technology that's really not known anymore, and only like certain and sacred people are privy to this type of stuff. And that's to protect it. That is definitely to protect it. But it's necessary that we do this work at this time because, yeah, things are really stuck in those gates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing amazing work. Just to let people know watching this video, we are recording this in 2024, just in case people are going, oh, I want to come, but it's 2025. So just so they know. But I'm sure you're being ongoing events for this kind of clearing.
Yeah,
Well,
it's my third event that I'm hosting. So before we did Rome, we did the Vatican. That was a
oh,
big clearing.
yeah.
Very, very big client. And then we did Washington, D.C., and now we're doing Kauai. And in the future, we might be doing Germany and Switzerland, CERN.
Oh, good. Come to
Yeah.
London sometime. The city of London also needs a bit of a clearing.
Yeah, I'd love
See
to.
if you're called. Well, Indigo Angel, thank you so much. And I know you're going to be offering a meditation to go along with this interview. And until we speak again.
Okay, thank you, Steve. It was good to talk with you.